Okay, so you may have seen my previous video where I talk a little bit about BPD. Well, not a little bit, I talked for 25 minutes, but I might work on condensing that down to something smaller. But I talked about BPD. I mentioned that I had a story I wrote was accepted in a Steampunk universe anthology, which was an anthology which is an anthology that is supposed to represent disability and aneurotypical characters throughout. It has come under some scrutiny and controversy because some people believe that if you don't have a disorder, disability, or you're not aneurotypical, that you shouldn't be writing characters that are. Now, you could go onto Stephen's website or his blog, which I'll link below, and you can see in more detail the kind of discussion that was going on around it during the time when there were calls for submissions and people's reactions to them. The call for submission personally excited me because it asked not only for aneurotypical disabled characters, but also LGBT, diversity cultures that are not based on white, Anglo-Saxon cultures, all types of things. Also, steampunk universe. So you've got the sort of sci-fi, even just planet-wise influence, and also the kind of steampunk under the sea stuff. So I thought that's a lot of ideas that they're throwing out there for you, that they're asking you to come back with the story, and I thought I would try and touch on as many of those as I could, because I really wanted to be a part of the anthology. Now, like I said, Stephen's come under the scrutiny, and Sarah as well, the editor, about whether, and they've questioned many times whether or not to go through with it. I can only give you my perspective as a person who is aneurotypical. I can only give my perspective, and not only my perspective as something like that, but as somebody who has actually had a story accepted. It kind of annoyed me when I saw people saying to Sarah and to Stephen that it was too limiting. The the call for submissions was too limiting. Consider all the disability, all the different types of people in the world that are typical and neurotypical, and in so many different types of ways. How is that limiting? It's only limiting if in your mind these people are limited. Also, LGBT, people of different races that aren't just white, all those things. There's so much there. there's like, it could blow your mind just thinking about the opportunities and what you could do to write a story with all those things, and I feel like that's not a failure of the people asking, of the people writing the the list of things that they want. That's a fault of the person who's responding to it and what they can do with their imagination when they're asked to. Also, now it's coming up, that there's less than 50% of people that are in the anthology that Stephen and Sarah know are disabled or aneurotypical. I told them that I was in my cover letter. I explained that I had BPD. Now, in my story, there's also a trans character, and I'm not trans. I am bisexual, but again, similar with the BPD, I don't talk about that. And I certainly, for many of the same reasons that I don't talk about BPD, because bisexuality, especially since I'm with a partner of the opposite gender to me, that I am, just pretending to be bi, or that bisexuality doesn't exist, or that I, like so many things that happen when people talk about bisexuality, so much bi erasure. But I chose a trans character, and I'm not trans. But however, I am a writer, so I researched, and I listened, I found out as many trans people as I could, and I listened to their stories, and obviously documentaries, all types of ways as a writer that you, on the internet, that you can research something that you are not familiar with, and therefore then try to write about it in an accurate way, an accurate representation. I do not know what it's like to live in a steampunk world, or through an alien invasion, or any of the things that go on in my story. I don't know how it feels to live through all of those. And another aspect of my story was that I remember reading that some people with borderline personality disorder have such a difficult or absent sense of self, of who they are, that they can like veer between sexualities, and they can veer between gender identity. And what I thought at that time was, there may very well be people that with BPD that are confused, and that are only doing it because of their borderline personality disorder. But I then asked, considering, as I mentioned in my previous video, how much being invalidated causes BPD, and as much as it gets reflected back as soon as you have BPD to be invalidated, how does it feel for a person who is trans, who isn't confused, who is trans? How does it feel for them when they have BPD and people are saying, oh, you're not really trans, you just feel confused because of your BPD? That sparked off an idea in my head. So I explored it in my story. What else I explored in my story? The invalidation, but I also explored that sort of balance between logic and emotion. Look at a world where people have, destroyed their emotion because they've belittled it and put it down and put it down and put it down and put it down to the point where they can't feel it anymore and they don't have it. Versus, in a world with my character who is in a psychiatric ward to begin with, and has a diagnosis of BPD, and who feels things immensely. So I am a neurotypical. I am writing about a BPD character, but I'm not trans, and I am writing about a trans character. So I feel that, to me, I wouldn't mind if someone was writing a BPD character. What I would mind about and have come across is when people write a BPD character incorrectly, or they write it in a stigmatizing way, or they use it as a way to vilify their antagonist. That's different, and that shows someone who has an axe to grind, or who hasn't done their proper research or spoken to people with the disorder, and who's basically maybe met or known one person with it and has decided that that represents every person with the disorder, and that is a massively stigmatized disorder. That's the difference. And I trust Stephen and Sarah. I trust that they will understand when something is being compassionate and realistic, and has done it and has been well researched, versus something that isn't, because that's their job as editor and publisher, if they're going to put that out. I also am impressed by their willingness to listen to people's opinions, their fair responses whenever they have done something that wrong, admitting it and making an effort to change it. All those things are positive, and it's positive getting an anthology out there where all the characters are a neurotypical or disabled. Whether or not all the writers are not, because if it's out there, it will encourage people with disorders to come, for writers with disorders to feel brave enough to write about it, which is what it's done for me, because I've not been able to write about it. I can't believe I'm making this video, and I've made the previous video about BPD, because of it. When I sent my story in and I said in my cover letter that I was BPD, later on, whenever I got an acceptance, I worried. I thought, I want my family and my friends, and I want to be able to share this with people that are ex-colleagues, teachers. I want to share this on my Facebook. I want to share this with people. But how can I'm now concerned that, they're going to see me in the story through the BPD. And therefore, what I felt, hide. And it's the exact same way that whenever when Chroma Literary Journal was going and I got shortlisted for their short story award, I then became really afraid because the story was for queer writers, and ask, am I queer enough? With someone who's bisexual and who's not been open about it in the past. What really kind of disturbed me is, Stephen's written, ask a litmus test for, are you disabled enough? Are you aneurotypical enough to be in this anthology, to write in this anthology? I think that the most important thing about the anthology is the stories. The writers are really important, and it's so important that we get diverse writers heard as well. That is massively important, and they're trying to do that also, and have done that in the previous anthology, Steampunk World. Trying to do it, getting the stories out there, will make people braver. Even the idea of my story being out there has made me brave enough to do this, to talk about it, to post videos, and to have given a behind the story paragraph or two to Stephen to help with the campaign. I don't see positive representations of BPD in the media, in the books that I read. I don't see positive representations of it. Realistic ones that are compassionate. I am able to give that view, to give my view of BPD, and rest assured that my view of BPD is not necessarily the same as another person with BPD. As I was saying in my last video, we're really all individual. I'll give you an example. I'm obviously, I have a community that I'm a BPD community on Facebook that I follow or a member of, and just last week a member put up a picture of a book that they found in the library, How to Talk to a Borderline. Now, I saw it and immediately I felt like, oh my God, this is awful. How to talk to a borderline, how to talk to a human being. We're human beings. That's what came into my mind. Now, the person who'd found the book felt completely opposite about me. She thought, I would like to give this book to people that know me. I think this book would help them respond to me and understand me in a way that meant we could have, good communication. Because some people with BPD really, really struggle with communication. So while that book to me felt invalidating, that book to her felt like, a lifeline. We're individuals. Also, in terms of friends with people, writers that have friends or family that are aneurotypical or disabled. My best friend is currently writing a novel in which she has a character with BPD, and she's writing it because she's been my friend for so long, and has an understanding of the ways that I've struggled and the difficulty when I see bad representations of BPD, or when I read that stuff. And she's got this awesome character that she's developing fully 3D and is using to explore, is using to explore BPD, and it's a YA novel, and I think that would be really helpful. I don't think that just because she doesn't have it that she should shut up about it. She has someone she can talk to about it. She has people she can research. I have friends that are BPD that have different types of BPD than I do. There's so many things that she can do in order to help her write a accurate and compassionate character who's BPD. Now that's my personal feelings, and I can't say I'm writing a trans character, I can't say that anyone who's trans will read my story and feel that they understand it or that it resonates with them. I can't say that. I can just say that I have done my best, and I really look forward to criticism, good and bad, because that's how you grow. You don't grow if you don't take chances and you don't put things out there. And certainly, even, you know, the idea of picking up an anthology and knowing that every single character in there is not going to be your typical able-bodied white cis male, you know, hero, excites me and is worthwhile. So that's just my tuppence on this, and obviously I have an invested interest because I have a story in there, but I would like you to read the story, and I would like you to understand that doing this has helped me, and that even if, as I read through it, even if it were not me that had written this story that I, you know, and I were reading this anthology that I wasn't a writer in, and I saw a character with BPD done in such a compassionate way, where they're the actual protagonist and not the antagonist, that would really have a massive positive impact on me, and I would like to see more of that in the future. So I think give it a chance. 50% of people is pretty damn good, especially considering we don't know the others. You know, I did wonder, oh my god, I don't want to say that I'm BPD now that the story's been published. I should say, oh, please don't tell anyone, and I won't give a backstory about myself, and I won't put it in my bio, and I'll distance myself from it, so that, you know, I'm not seen as a BPD person writing about a BPD character. I want the protection of the anonymity, and for people to then say to Stephen, oh, he should get people to give, you know, basically their, oh, I'm disabled, I'm definitely a neurotypical, like, credentials or cards in, is really kind of scary to me, you know, because you have a lot to lose when you are suffering with an illness that has such stigma, and it's your choice whether or not you want people to know that you have it. So you could be going down a pretty dangerous path when you're saying, you know, show me your papers, show me that you're disabled. You know, start to actually sound like the UK government right now, you know, we're not going to help you unless you do this work capability assessment, and we're not going to say you're disabled if you can put a pen in your pocket. And if you've got a mental health illness, God help you, because, you know, that's an invisible illness, and therefore we don't see it, we don't care. We won't help you. So anyway, these are my thoughts. And I really welcome comments and responses from people out there that may have different opinions than me and think that we should only be writing characters that we have a personal knowledge of what they're going through. But I know if that were the case, then I should probably just remove most of the books in my bookcase, especially the issue books where you've got older writers writing about YA characters and teens who are experiencing abuse or abusing meth or all that, cutting, all types of things, you know. If those, I don't wonder when I read the book the whole time, does the author know? I just get invested in the story and I go from there. And yes, it is really good to promote diversity among authors as well, but I don't really think that in order to hear the voices of people with the disabilities that you have to silence the people without, especially if they're willing and able to put themselves in another person's shoes, because that's what writing's about as well. It's about empathy. When I teach it in school, it's about empathy. It's about getting my students to put themselves in the shoes of someone not like them and learn compassion through that. Learn to be, you know, better human beings in the end. And we have to see all around us, we have to see that there are so many different types of people. We have to learn to empathize with people that are not like us, and we have to find common ground. We have so much work to do, and I think that this anthology Steampunk universe is doing some of that work right now. It's trying, and I think people should try really hard, and through that trying, through getting all this information out there, getting these characters written about, we're going to encourage, hopefully we'll encourage more people with the disorders, with the disabilities, to come out and give us their perspective and not feel ashamed to or stigmatized.